Hello and welcome back to the When You're Podcast, the podcast for when you're doing anything. Today we're talking about when you're watching X-Men, Days of Future Past. Now this movie actually happens to take place in 2023, so this is really cool. I kind of like it when like the movies catch up to like, I don't know, kind of like our time. Like, when Blade Runner 2049 comes, when 2049 comes, you're going to be able to watch Blade Runner. You're going to be like, yeah, none of that future technology stuff is really happening to us in real life. Or maybe it will, Who knows what kind of advanced technology will come in time. But that's all I'm trying to say is that, like, in the future, which is portrayed in this movie was made in 2014, but, like, in the future, in 2023, which this movie takes place, mutants are being hunted by the Sentinels and stuff. So now let's just address the big elephant in the room. Charles is alive. I know that at the end of the third X-Men movie, X-Men The Last Stand, spoilers for the X-Men movies, just in case, maybe you haven't seen them or maybe you don't care. But anyways, spoilers for X-Men movies, all right? And I say X-Men movies, like all of them. You need to watch a huge chunk of them in order to understand what I'm talking about. But anyways, so I know he technically died in X-Men The Last Stand, which was so dumb, but that's beside the point. He's back, and he's telling Logan, or, Hugh Jackman, Wolverine. Let's just stick with Wolverine. He tells Wolverine that they have to stop, is it Bolivar or Oliver? I forget, but Trask. Anyways, they have to stop Trask from making the Sentinels because they've already created a weapon to locate mutants and then future mutants and then kill them off, essentially. That was the whole plan. So they have to go back in time, back to the past to fix everything. When, what's her name? Mystique went back in time. She went back in time. No, she didn't go back in time. What am I talking about? In the past, Mystique killed Trask for killing some of the mutants, and because of that, it made mutants dangerous, and then they invested a bunch of money into the project. Long story short, they have to go back and fix a bunch of things, which offered a bunch of opportunities. It offered the opportunity for, Magneto, like two different Magnetos, the old, obviously the older versions, and now the younger versions that they just introduced in X-Men First Class. It allowed them to both be in the same movie, and it juggled those characters so perfectly, and the differences between them in the time of their life, right? Magneto and Charles, we've already kind of seen their character arc, for Sir Ian McKellen and Sir Patrick Stewart. Right, we've already seen their characters go through it for them, but we haven't exactly seen it for James McAvoy or Michael Fassbender's character, right? We're just kind of like seeing where their issues started and began. We haven't really seen them take it in a new direction or make it different, All it is kind of like the origins of where they started, and this is how they end up where they are in the future. So I felt like this movie had such a great premise. I also feel like it was a great sequel following X-Men First Class. I don't know. I'll just say it was a great sequel. It was a great follow-up to X-Men First Class. And it does offer a bunch of possibilities and opportunities for a good future for the franchise, for what they were making at the time, right? I felt like they did a great job with balancing all of the characters, making it seem believable, making it seem real, even though it kind of isn't, but you know what I'm trying to say. It's kind of making sense. So, going into the past to stop Raven or Mystique from killing Trask, and Wolverine's the only one that can go. And I have to... I'm not going to say this is Hugh Jackman's best performance as Wolverine. I mean, I know he does a great job, but like for the most part, they kind of sidelined him a bit. Even though he's like the main guy, and he has some good moments, he has some good scenes, but I'm not gonna say like he was the star of the show. I feel like, you know, obviously movies like The Wolverine and X-Men, what was it? X-Men Wolverine, like the Origins, X-Men Origins or something like that with Wolverine. I feel like those ones more centralized and focused on him. This movie, on the other hand, kind of, his character takes a bit of a backseat, which is not a bad thing, but it's kind of like, I felt like even though so much has happened for him and to him, and he wants to protect so much, it just feels like nothing's really in his favor, and he can't really push back against it, you know? He can't really, so quote-unquote protect or save everything, right? But we do see some redemption later on in his own solo film. But anyways, Wolverine hops up in here, and he has to... And it's such a cool moment to see the roles reversed, you know? Now he has to teach Charles. He has to pull him out of the rut. He has to kind of guide him and give him an opportunity to take control of his life again. Because I think that's a point that they miss out on a little bit, is that, like, eventually Charles will, you know, young Charles will snap out of it, right? Like, at some point or another, Charles wakes up. You know, he's not overdosing on the drugs. He becomes the best version of himself, which we see in the first X-Men movie, right? Like, this calm, cool, collected professor, you know? Whereas there, he's a lot more flawed. He's a lot more deep. But we don't know, how did he do it? You know, how did the other version of him do it without Wolverine coming in and helping him out, right? Like, I think that's a big one that they miss. And I feel like they often miss that with sometimes, you know, maybe a character goes back into the past and they fix everything. It's like, well, hold on. How did you do it? How did you fix things? How did you overcome everything? Like, how did you do it? Right? How did you overcome all of that? You know, because you had a lot going against you at the moment. So, other than that, I feel like Wolverine played his part perfectly. He went back there and he was able to push everybody in the right direction, give them the opportunity to realize the good that can come from being a mutant, as well as the perseverance to do what's right. And in doing that, it pushes everybody in a new direction. It leads everybody in a different place. So, including Raven, because this whole movie isn't about necessarily, it's not about saving Trask, right? Like, Trask is, you know, who cares, right? Like, him himself, Trask could die. Like, nobody would really care, you know? He's a bad guy. He's not a good guy. He's not anybody worth really saving. It's about the aftermath of his death, you know, what it will look like to the public, how the people will see it, what matters to them. Because then it affects mutants as well. So, Trask is not who they're really trying to save, right? What they're trying to do, and what Professor X, what everybody is trying, what Beast, Wolverine, they're all trying to stop mutant kind from going extinct. That's they're trying to save their future as mutants and the possibilities that they could have in a peaceful society where humans and mutants can live together in harmony and peace, you know? But there are a bunch of people who, well, in this movie, one particular person who thinks differently. And I'm not going to say I disagree with him. I actually think that there's a good chunk of what he believes that is right. And I know it feels wrong to kind of deny it. I mean, it feels wrong to want to accept it, but I think it really makes a lot of sense. And that would be Magneto. I mean, Michael Fassbender as Magneto. What an amazing choice. That was just... his acting in this movie is just so... I mean, it's fantastic. I remember the scene where they're in the airplane, and I just remember him yelling at Charles, feeling so... After being locked up for 10 years or so, right? I hope it's not... I hope he wasn't locked up for a decade. That was a bit harsh. But they locked him up nonetheless. They locked him up, and what I really liked about it all was how he is fighting for mutants as well. It's not just, I hate mutants and you don't, you know what I mean? It's more like, there's no one big bad guy. It's more of like ideas of how to be mutants in society. So Magneto just thinks that humans are past saving. You know, they're not going to withstand or outlive mutants, right? They're the future. So eventually, everybody who's human will eventually have mutant children, and mutants will continue to live and survive and to be around, and there's no avoiding it. There's no escaping it. So he just feels like humans have to either get with the program or they're going to have to meet their end. You know, they're going to have to go away. Charles doesn't really think like that. He's like, if it's going to happen anyway, if we're going to already dominate the world, you know, if mutants are going to be all over the planet, then we might as well just kind of try to make peace with them now, so that way in the future we can transition a lot easier. You know what I mean? And this is where Magneto, I mean, you can't help but feel for Magneto when he just like talks about all of the things that he's lost, all of the things that have gone against him, coming from, you know, being in the Holocaust, from his mother dying, from building a team of mutants on his own, and then all of them dying and being killed and experimented on, right? There's a whole thing there of like, I try and I try and I try to do what's right, but in the end, you know, it all just comes back to bite him later, right? It doesn't end up working the way he wants. You know, he chooses to, he tries to throw the first punch before he can get hit. And Charles is more of like, how about we don't throw punches, we try to talk things out first, and we handle it from there. But he's like, Magneto's kind of like, there's no point in that, because they're definitely going to throw the first punch. So if we get ahead of them, then there's nothing wrong with us. You know, then we're protected, we're safe. You know, but they're always going to attack us. They're always going to hate us. They're always going to fear us. And this is where it just really pains you to see that these two people who care about mutants, who care about living peacefully, they just have different ideas of it. So for me, Magneto really, in this movie, is very smart, charismatic. He has a great way of talking to people and of communicating his ideas to other mutants and making them believe that they're not in the wrong and they don't have to hide. They don't have to suffer. They don't have to be ashamed of who they are. They have to embrace it and join up together, because together they're strong. Together they can take on anything, you know? Out on their own and alone, it becomes very dangerous. It becomes very scary. And he makes that clear in his broadcast as like, it's about us, you know? We're going to be here. So let's join up together and let's do the best that we can, you know? And if that means we have to if that means that we have to fight, then we have to fight. If it means that we get to make our own little society and community, then let's do that, you know? Whereas Charles is more of like, he puts on a front, per se, just for now, to keep things under the radar, you know? You can't be upset at what you don't know about. So he makes this fake school and he creates his own community, but like it's under the disguise of they're actually just gifted kids, you know? They're all smart and they're not mutants or anything, you know? He can kind of cover it all up, per se, you know, make it look appeasing, but is also something else entirely. And I think not one way or the other is really right or wrong. But if I had to choose, I would say that I would definitely say that there would be a place for me on both sides. I think I could definitely adapt to Charles Xavier's ideas, and then I feel like I could also adapt to Eric Lyncher, Magneto's philosophy. I feel like there's a place for me. And so, in trying to save mutant kind, it's really about who can get to Raven, who can really make her realize that by killing Trask, by murdering him, she's not doing anything for mutants. She's actually just playing right into what's going to happen, no matter what. So if she kills him, flat out, she just kills him right then and there, no matter what, then mutant kind is destroyed. They've already lost. But if she holds some restraint, then she's actually doing a really big thing for mutants. She's actually doing so much to give them a chance at becoming better. And it's her decision alone. But without a little bit of, what should I say? Without, a little speech from Professor X never hurt. And I also feel like the relationship between Charles and Raven was it was a little bit awkward. It was, they're like, have a sibling relationship, but she always felt like she couldn't escape either of them. She couldn't escape Magneto, and she couldn't escape Charles. She was always stuck in between the two. And it was very hard for me to be like, okay, but what's your thing? What do you want? And she was always like, mutant and proud, but it's also kind of like, okay, but do you want to kill humans? And she's like, I only want to kill the one guy because of the bad things that he's done. I don't want to get into a whole war. Whereas, Magneto's like, we have to start now. We have to get into war. We have to fight back. And Charles is more of like, we don't have to kill anybody. We don't have to do anything. We have it. We can be the better people here. We can take all of this hate. We can take all of the damage that they they offer and throw at us because we're strong, because we're better than they are, And eventually the people will realize that. But if you kill them now, they will only look at us and mutants as the enemy, as people who will kill those who oppress them, which is not, I think that's understandable that they would want to get back at people who oppress them, but it's more of like, obviously in their eyes, they feel like it's the information's not public, I feel like if the people knew what was happening to mutants, if they knew about mutants and like the injustices happening to them, maybe a lot more people would be like, speak out a bit. I don't know. Which is why I feel like there should have been like another mutant that was loved and accepted by regular human parents. Right? Like that could have been cool. But anyways, Raven in the end has to make a decision. She makes a choice. And it was the right choice. And it gives everybody a new direction to follow, a new place, and it kind of fixes all of the timeline errors and mistakes of the past from other movies, and it really puts everything in a new place, in a better place. And I enjoyed that. I thought that by doing that, it definitely gave them more to look forward to in the future. So the mutants moving forward, I felt like they could have done, you know, in my mind, there's like two different things, right? Like X-Men Days of Future Past fixed the original trilogy, which was X-Men, X-Men 2, and then X-Men The Last Stand, and then X-Men First Class, X-Men Days of Future Past. Like, that's its own thing. So Days of Future Past fixed the original trilogy, and that's its own separate world, right? Where everybody's back together again, happy, rejoice. And I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to accept that that original trilogy is now fixed and everybody's okay. And this, you know, new trilogy and this new X-Men franchise, it goes a little differently. It goes a little differently moving forward. So, and some of it's a little weird, but you know, I didn't come up with it. Okay, I didn't write it, but it's where they wanted to go with it. All right. Now, I wanted to talk about this is the last thing I wanted to talk about, and this is probably, I mean, the dialogue between these two characters was so. It was so great to see them interact with each other, and you don't even really know what a conversation between the two of them would be like until they're actually there, you know, until they can actually talk to each other. And it was when James McAvoy meets Sir Patrick Stewart, my bad. Charles Xavier meets old Charles Xavier. And it was that moment between the two of them where one is just completely broken, alone, discarded. He feels abandoned by his students, by his friends, people that he loves, people who he thought were going to be there with him. And it's an example of how emotionally drained Charles is. You know, from the war, from school not working out, from losing his legs, from not having anybody left, right? Except for Hank. Obviously, Hank is still there, but it's more, you know, all of his hopes, his ideas, his dreams have kind of been destroyed, been broken. You know, how do you... It's difficult to start from scratch again, you know, especially after so much time has passed. And I feel like, again, I feel like there was a big moment wasted where Charles doesn't ask, how did he do it? You know, the other Charles didn't have the opportunity to meet this Charles, right? I'm assuming all of that they're doing right now was new to them. So, you know, there's a piece of me that's kind of like, but how did he do it? How did he overcome it on his own? He didn't have another Charles to talk to him. He didn't have another Charles to say the right things, the best things to him about hope, about doing what's right, about showing people that mutants aren't killers. They're not evil. They're not bad. They're regular. They're normal people, you know? And they just want to feel accepted. They want their own community. They want to be loved and given a chance to do good, you know? In a world where nobody wants them, in a world where nobody wants to bring them in, and that's what's difficult. That's what is so different. But the conversation between the two of them is fantastic. I felt like in that moment, it completely gives us an insight of what Charles wants, of what he believes, and what he knows to be the best way to move forward with peace and kindness and genuine what's it called? With genuine compassion and empathy for other mutants and for people, to bring them all together, to live together. There's an opportunity, there's a chance for it. And if they miss out on it, there's no chance, you know? They will be extinct. They will be wiped out. There'll be no opportunities for them unless they bring it all together. So this movie had so many great moments. It had a lot of great scenes for me, and I feel like when I watch it, I don't want to say I'm like at peace. I feel like a good sense of calm, or like this new look inside of myself where it's kind of like, okay, you know, what would I do in this situation? You know, if I was a mutant, you know, so-called mutant in this world, what would I do? Where would I go? Where would I fit into all of this, you know? And I feel like all of it is kind of based on circumstances, right? On what would my power be? What would my family situation be? How would I see other mutants, you know? I guess it all kind of depends. So, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys liked it. Definitely go watch this movie and the other X-Men movies. There's some pretty good moments in all of them. I definitely give it a good rating. You know, you'll get some enjoyment, some entertainment, some good action in there, right? It's all fun, and it's very, very good. You get some good dialogue, you get some good scenes, you get some good entertainment from it. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you guys so much for listening. I'll see you guys all next time. Thank you.